Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Next Level Real Talk Podcast, where we have conversations on the journey of personal transformation and the pursuit of lasting peace and happiness with Sheldon and David. And welcome to another episode of Next Level Real Talk Podcast with Sheldon and David. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining
welcome
us.
back. Yeah,
Yeah,
welcome back.
welcome.
Good to see you guys virtually. Hope you had a great time this week, and we'll be talking about some great stuff today.
Yeah, we wanted to, depending on when you're watching this thing, right? There's been a lot of crazy things going on in the world, which seems like every single week we say that. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. Um, Not to date this, depending on when you watch it, but the fires are going on as we're recording this in Southern California. Um, you know, tens of thousands of people burned out of their houses and stuff like that, and just a lot of stuff that can create a lot of anxiety, fear, um,
hmm
a lot of distress within us ourselves. And this thought came into my head when I was talking with Jacqueline the other day, and just was that everything that you do carries the energy of where you do it from.
I
So,
love that saying. That's so cool.
yeah, so we wanted to sort of dive into that a little bit. Everything you do carries the energy where you do it from. Everything that you do carries the energy of where you do it from. Like, where are you doing? What is the source of your action? You
What
know,
is your purpose?
yeah, what is the purpose of that action? Right? Exactly. And
And
uh,
real quick, and to explain what I just said, what is your purpose? So let's say I'm going in to help the people in Palisades, down in LA area. I'm going in there to help. They're very displaced, so I'm going in to help, and want to be a politician. And so I want my face out there to show that I'm helping the people. Oh, I'm here to help. That's what I'm doing. Where in actually, that person is, I am helping. I
yeah,
am help some way. I'm helping them. But where am I coming from? I'm not coming from my heart. I'm coming from, I want to be seen
I
so
want to
that
look
I can put
good.
that on a little
Yeah,
blurb,
yeah,
when I run for office. Hey, look what I did over here.
yeah. Taking Instagram
Um,
photos the whole time you're helping.
exactly. And so, and understand, I'm still helping them.
Yep,
So don't think that, I'm just gonna do, I'm not gonna go there and not do anything. No, I'm helping them, but I'm doing it from the wrong way, wrong
yeah.
angle.
Place. Yeah,
If Sheldon's going in and go like, hey, I have family, I have friends, I'm doing this from my heart. Um, and he's doing the same thing I'm doing, but it's coming from a different angle.
yeah,
And I think his is more sustainable and lasting.
yeah.
So
And if you've watched this podcast at all, I'm all about the energy, and that you have
mhm,
a spark. You have a place within you in the center of your heart, and you call it your energetic center. You can call it the Christ within, the Holy Spirit. And it's your divinity. It's the truth of who you are, whether you believe that or not. Like I said, you can just call it your energy center if that's the what you're into, which is fine because it's. Um, but there's a place within you, and that place that you need to connect to is not in your head, right? It's not about judgment. It's not about the mind can get you all twisted. So when you get out of your mind, which again is why meditation is so effective, it takes you out of your mind and puts you into some place that's beyond that. And that place that's beyond that is in the heart. And that's where you naturally drop into when you get out of your head, right? So
mhm,
you don't even have to try, it just happens. And when you're sourcing from that place, your action, whatever that action is, it will carry this resonance, this energy,
mhm,
radiance of that place, which is love, which is compassion, which is empathy, um, which will build connection, which will build um, community, which will lift people up, and
mhm.
not, um,
and
not
and
hold
s-
people down or look down on
yeah,
people.
and see them as a person, as
Yeah,
not as an object.
yeah,
I mean, see the situation as a situation, not as a opportunity. So it's a totally different perspective where you're coming from. Even
yeah,
though the outcome may be the same of the support, but it's where it's coming from. And I walk away and I don't know who that person was. You walk away and you have a lifetime relationship with that person, whatever it might be.
right.
But it's a totally different, yeah.
Yeah, that idea that you should never be looking down on somebody unless you're extending your hand to lift them up. Have you heard that one?
Yes, I
Yes,
love that.
yeah.
Yep.
The only time you're looking down is if you're, like, reaching down to pull the person up, right? You shouldn't be looking
Mhm,
down on people. We're all the same, basically. We're all humans. We're all exactly the same. And
mhm,
I've always said that that's one of the hardest practices actually to have is to look at everyone as exactly the same. We normally exalt, which holds
mhm,
somebody higher than you. "Oh my god, look how great they are. I wish I were like them." Or we, um, condemn or judge or look down on somebody, right? It's like, "Oh, I can't believe they did
mhm.
that. I would never do that," right? Versus we're all the same. Um,
Yeah,
we're all human. We're all just trying to get through this thing. And, how do we do that in the most loving way we can? And that includes and it starts with yourself, right? So if the stuff that's coming up in the world right now is bringing up fear, is bringing up
yeah,
anxiety, is it bringing up stress, trauma for yourself, the first place you have to show that compassion and love for is yourself, right? You have to be
yeah,
able to hold space for yourself and allow that stuff. If you bury it, um, when you bury your feelings, you fundamentally are putting them in a vault that
yeah,
will eventually erupt. Um,
mhm,
and how friends, family, some of us have big support systems like David. And some of us are
thank
support
you.
system David has very large, and it's a beautiful thing. Um,
Mhm,
and it's been the result of his being a support for so many people, right? Um, but, some of us have large support systems, some of us, our support systems are smaller, and more intimate, and some of us might have a hard time finding that, who is it, that person? Who's the wolf pack that we talked about, right? But
mhm,
you ultimately are your wolf pack for yourself first and foremost, right? It is
yes,
holding space for yourself and being compassionate. And so, oh, I should be doing this. Oh, I should be helping or I should be doing something. And let's say you do it, but you do it from the sense of obligation or guilt. And this is what I mean by everything that you do carries the energy of where you do it from is that,
yep,
you know, oh, if I
mhm,
help these people, but I'm doing it because I feel guilty, um, what you're extending is that energy of guilt.
mhm,
That's what you're doing. You're bringing guilt into it. You did do something, the physical, but on the energetic, kind of spiritual, deep level, all you've done is foster this guilt within yourself and extend that out into the world. So how do you release that um, within yourself? Right. First is being first thing you have to do is be present with it, right? And be compassionate with yourself and hold space with
mhm.
yourself and not judge. And that's a hard thing because oftentimes we're the harshest critic of ourself,
Of
right?
ourselves, and that's where we go back to some of the beginning things we've talked about. You gotta go inside. It's gonna be hard to go inside and undo that onion layer after layer after layer and just let it hurt. It's like, "Hey, I have this." I've never been there. I've never been through a fire. I've never been through all those things, but someone may have lost family.
but
Someone
you've
may
been
have
through
lost their
but you've been
wife.
through a pretty bad divorce,
Yes, yes. So
you know?
so
And
those
it
so those things. So I may understand that person that's really they're not in California. They're here in Arizona with me, and they're going through this. Like, why are they going through it? Well, because they had the trauma.
yeah.
Okay, so I can help them get through that by going within themselves. And yeah, yeah, with me, I went within myself and struggled through it. But that's where you start, and you come out the other side so much better. So
Right. And
yeah,
and being able to acknowledge that, whatever is coming up for you, even if it's fear, like let's say it's fear and trauma and you're just traumatized watching it on the news, that, the most that you can do is just be present for yourself
hmm,
and hold that space for yourself and release that fear. Because again, I believe we're all one. So everything is connected. So when you're releasing that energy and healing that within yourself, you're actually healing vibration of the whole planet, of everybody, all humanity, because you've released a little bit of fear. If you just
hmm,
work with that, keep doing something based on fear, everything you do will carry the energy that you do it from. You'll just continuing to
push fear.
propagate fear
Hmm,
out into the world, right?
yeah,
And so I had a teacher who said, the number one thing you could do, the most unselfish thing you can do in the entire universe and all of the world you know, is raise your vibration, and love is the highest vibration, right? So but it starts with love for yourself, right? So if
Mhm.
you're loving yourself and showing compassion for yourself, and that's so hard for so many of us, because again, the mind tends to judge ourselves. Oh, you're not doing enough, or you should be doing this, or you should be doing that. Why aren't you doing this? Blah blah blah. Or you didn't do it well enough. Even if you do something, you could have done it better. And there's this chatter that's going on, and I do think that the energy of the world right now is increasing that kind of chatter. So I think that that's where this kind of comes down to is being present but compassionate, loving compassion for
Mhm.
everything that might be coming up within yourself, and knowing that that is healing for both the planet and the world and everybody around as well as yourself. So we always heal
Ye
together, right? We all heal
Mhm.
together, because we are all connected. That is why you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself, right? It's not like yourself, but
Yeah.
as you, because we're one. But also, you love yourself, you heal your neighbor, you help the community, your family. Um,
And
so
it's how you're coming at it, how you're approaching it. Okay, and just to know in this episode, we will talk about fires more because that's just the big thing that's going on. Um, but if I'm going out to help someone and I'm more doing it in fear, they feel the fear, and it's not as calming.
100%.
I can say that word. But if I'm
It's not
coming at it in
sincere. They
love,
feel the energy
yeah,
of that. 100%,
yeah.
dude.
But if I'm
Absolutely.
coming in as love, they feel the love. It's like, okay, I'm relaxed. I
Yes.
feel even though I may not be hugging Sheldon if he's in the fire, I'm not hugging him. They feel the arms around them in that way. They
Yes.
feel the energy hugging
Yes.
them, and
Yes.
so that's a big difference. Even though in both situations I am helping clean up, I am helping get them help, I am doing, but it's how I'm coming about it and how that person receives it.
Yeah.
So know that it's great that you're helping, but it's how your energy goes to them in
Yeah,
that situation.
and if you've ever had that person that, let's say you're going through a hard time and sometimes somebody just shows up and just hangs out with you and doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything, doesn't help you to process what you're going through. They're just with you. And yet their
Mhm.
presence of peace and compassion and love, you feel, and you end up feeling better for no reason necessarily, right? But you feel better for them having been there. Or
Yeah.
somebody sends you something. So it's, you don't have to do stuff in action. Well, obviously that's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. But to me, the important thing is that you connect back into that place within yourself and know that what you're doing and making sure that what you're doing comes from that place of love and compassion
Yeah.
and not from fear, not from guilt, not from shame, not from judgment, not from anything else other than um, and if you need to extend that love to yourself first, which we all should be doing and want to be doing first,
To do it first, yeah.
then do that first, right? And that's
And
seek first the kingdom of heaven within, all things will be added unto you, right? You start
yeah.
by connecting to yourself.
Mhm. And uh, honestly, I if you're having that fear that or your guilt of going and doing, I need to go do this for guilt, because I'm feel guilty. No, you need to deal with that
Yeah,
as you're going to help. Because if you're doing it for that reason, then it's not. I keep repeating that kind of the same idea. You're not going for the right reason, but then again, that's hurting you inside, and so you can't really help others if you're not helping yourself. Um,
100%.
and and you
It's
talked
like
about
the
having
it's
that
like
person.
the airplane, in your airplane, it says, "Put your mask on first before helping others."
Mhm. Yeah,
If the
you got to
if the
help yourself.
oxygen mask just drops, put your oxygen mask on first before
Mhm.
you help this person next to you, right?
Yep,
It's the
because
same
you
thing.
can't do it. You can't do anything if you're not there.
Yeah. Take care of
So
yourself first.
I can't take care of my granddaughter if I don't put my mask on and I can't breathe. I can't put it on her.
Yeah.
So I am the one that's the adult, need to get it on, get my breathing going, and get it to her. That's what you need to do first. And you were real quick talking about just having somebody there. Don't have to say anything, don't have to do
Mhm.
anything. And it brought up a great memory. God bless your mom. Um, I remember when I was first asked to leave in the divorce, and I was at my aunt and uncle's house because they were gone. So I was going to stay there. I had a place to stay. Thank you, Lord, by the way. Um, had a place to stay, so I was there and called my mom and told her what was going on, and she was I'm on my way, and she came over. She just sat there on the couch and read a book. Didn't talk, didn't do anything. She was, "What do you want to do?" I don't know, mom. She goes, "I'm just going to sit here and read. I'm just going to let you sit." And she just read her book, and I just
The
sat there and cried.
wisdom. The wisdom of
Mhm.
that woman, right? That's so perfect. That is
I was
so
like,
spot
I look back,
on.
I'm like, wow, because until you said that, I did not realize that. She just
Yeah.
sat there. I'm like,
Didn't
wow.
need
She just sat there and said, "I'm here. My arms are around you, not physically,
yeah,
but just go and do what you gotta do.
yeah,
Cry, sleep, do whatever you gotta do, but just know that I'm here.
yeah.
I'm
That is
present."
beautiful.
Okay,
And
that
it
was
ties into one of
wow.
our earlier episodes where we talked also about, do I need to fix, when somebody's talking? Am I here to just
Mhm.
to listen, or am I here to fix? Do you want solutions, or you just want me to,
Yeah,
you're just venting and you need
I hear
somebody,
you. Mhm.
to hear you, kind of thing. It's like, do you want anything right now, or no? It's too intense, it's too extreme. What you need now is just
Yeah.
a calm and presence, you know.
Which my mom obviously knew because 'cause she'd been through it before.
Yep.
Knew that he doesn't need to do anything. There's
Yep.
nothing I can do for him.
Right.
He just gotta get
I'm
through
just
this
here for you.
moment. Yeah,
Woo, that's beautiful.
I know I start crying.
It's
I know
beautiful.
you are too, so 'cause you know my mom. Um, but it's in this situation, okay, I'm keep using that fire again, but in that fire, I walk up to someone, let's say I go over, to LA and I'm like, "Hey, how can I help you?" "Well, I just need someone to sit with me so I can talk a little bit." "Okay. I came over to help build a house for you." "No, it's not what I want right now. I just need someone to sit and talk." "Oh, okay." I may have my intentions, but what are their intentions? They're the ones going through it. Um, be willing to go over and do whatever. Be where and so outside the fire, let's go in just life. If you're see someone or you're going to do something out of love, out of support, then be willing to physically work. Be willing to just listen. Be willing to just sit. Whatever it is, just say, "Okay, I'm willing to go in. I don't know what it is I'm going in for, but get in there and then see what is needed." And if you walk up and someone gives you a hammer, guess what? You're physically doing something right now. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
if they're just sitting on a bench and they're just crying, maybe they just need you to sit there. Okay. So, so as you go into these things, know what you want, what your expectations are, but those aren't the important parts. The expectations are what they need at that
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
so, and we got to get in life, in partnerships and relationships, you got to get those two expectations online. So,
Mhm.
I just went total different area, but in life, we gotta start thinking about my expectation is I do this, this, and this. Well, wait, my expectation is that we do this, this, and this, or I do this and you do this. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And that's one thing that came up in my relationship. Like, well, I didn't know that. I need to be told that. And there were some things I didn't tell her. And so that was a miscommunication, a non-communication that people need to work on, which I do
Yeah.
better in my life now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So expectations, go in having yours, but also find out what theirs are and what they need. If you're going in there to help, and if you're the one that people are coming to help you, you need to express your expectations and what you need
Yeah.
without expecting them to know what you need.
Yes.
Because of course we always think everybody should know what I'm thinking about. Come on, man.
Right.
But it doesn't happen.
Yeah, we think, that everyone's psychic. That's how I
Yeah.
like to believe. You think you're psychic? We think we expect everyone to know, right?
Yeah.
So that we don't have to communicate with what really the
Hmm.
reality is we need to be better at communicating. We need to be better at being honest with ourselves about what
Hmm.
we're actually feeling and what we're actually needing, right? So that
Yeah.
comes back to this whole thing of being present and of sharing of having presence for yourself, in a loving, compassionate, non-judgmental way, for yourself and
Hmm.
what that is, and communicating that clearly to somebody who might be with you. You know
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
that those things will build more fulfilling relationships. I think.
Yeah. Because
Right.
then you're opening up. You're becoming vulnerable
Yeah.
because sometimes it's like, and it, every relationship is hard to become vulnerable because you're saying, hey, this is what I'm expecting, and sometimes what my expectations are, I'm fearing that someone might say, that's a stupid expectation. It's like, well, that's where we have to, on
Right.
both sides, go like, wait, that's where they're coming from. I
Right.
mean, Sheldon and I have two different expectations in life and things. If I
Right.
go over to help him on something, he needs something. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that because I don't have or grew up what he had or was going
Right.
through. And
Right.
Sheldon doesn't have the same. I mean, now mind you, we're very close. We kind of know each other enough that we do know what each other
Right.
needs. But
Right.
if I didn't know Sheldon, um, that's where you have to be open up to find out what's going on, you
Yeah.
know? So, it's we think we might know because we think we know everything, and we think everybody should know we're thinking. So, but it's that vulnerable being vulnerable. If I go over and Sheldon says, "Hey, this is what I need," and I'm like, "Oh, that's stupid. You just need me to sit here?" Like, no, that's what he needs,
Yeah.
and that's what his world is around,
Yeah.
So that's the hardest part is just be willing to be vulnerable. We talked about that before. It's hard to open
Yeah.
up.
Yep.
And but if that person can't accept where you are, then that kind of gives you a hint of what needs to happen. Either
Yeah.
move forward or,
Yeah.
you know, find the next person that can help you, you know? So, but hopefully but 90% of the time when you open up and you're vulnerable, there's acceptance, immediate
Yeah.
acceptance.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's something I have to work on because I always feel like when I'm opening them up, I'm being too vulnerable. I'm like,
I think
I
it's
might get
hard
hurt.
for us guys to share how we feel. I think
Yes.
I mentioned this before that the hardest thing for me to do with Jacqueline was to tell her that she hurt me
Hmm.
or that hurt my
Mm.
feelings. That's
Oh
simple.
wow.
That's it. That hurt my
Hmm.
feelings when you said that or you did that. That was the freaking hardest thing. Still probably harder, but that is one of the hardest things because it made me feel so vulnerable that she could hurt me. You know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
then you build up a barrier and you act tough, and then you become passive aggressive, and then you're just a jerk about
Yeah.
something else, right? You're just creating this whole dynamic rather than just saying, "Hey, that was hurtful," or
And and it doesn't allow her to know
yeah,
what she did.
yeah.
You know,
So there's
she's
no
because she keeps doing like, well, I didn't know that hurt you.
yeah.
Well,
Next thing you know,
could
you
you accept
explode
that?
at her. You explode
Yeah.
and, you're dick about something
Hmm.
else or something. So that,
Yeah.
the power of vulnerability for building healing relationships and growing relationships is
Hmm.
you can't underestimate how powerful that is. I think that Brene Brown talks about, you ever and she was at a TED talk and she's like, everybody who comes up here who's told these really powerful stories and has been extremely vulnerable, what did you think of them? And did you see them as courageous? And the whole audience, 100% of the audience raises their hands. They hear
Yeah.
these great stories and oh my God, this person is so courageous. And she goes, but that person standing up here sharing their story feels totally vulnerable and
Totally
insecure.
vulnerable. Hmm.
When you share your story, you feel vulnerable. But when
Hmm.
somebody hears it, they think that's courageous. They see it as courageous that you were able to do
Yeah.
that. And so
Hmm.
that's one of those things about, wow, that is so true. We feel vulnerable and we feel weak and we feel whatever, but the other person will see that oftentimes as being
Yeah.
courageous. Wow, thanks for
And
sharing that kind
yeah,
of thing.
and as we know, if you've watched our previous podcast, I do talk about my divorce now and then, but I don't dwell into it, and I don't make judgments of other people, but I do talk facts. And as Sheldon was talking, one fact that came up,
And the hope
uh,
is when you're sharing these that somebody can learn from it, right? That's the whole point of
yes,
this podcast, right?
that's exactly,
It's
yeah,
not to you're not dwelling,
um,
but you're sharing.
exactly. And I don't say that, hey, she this, hey, she that. I don't go after that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to just say what happened in my part. Um, so at one point after it was over, or as we were discussing, okay, I said, "Well, I didn't know that." She's like, "Well, I'm pretty good at key." She said, "Quote," because she had uh, I won't say illnesses. She had um, uh, heart problem with like fibromyalgia, Crohn's, and stuff like
Mhm,
that. So she was good at hiding things. And
mhm,
she said to me, as we're talking about the marriage, she goes, and the pending divorce. And I go, I didn't know that. She was like, well, I'm pretty good at hiding my feelings. And that right there, I sunk to the biggest emptiness that I'd ever had because I'm going like, well, how the hell am I supposed to know that she was feeling that way if she didn't tell me? But it was my fault that I didn't know that. And
yeah,
I'm going like, well, what the frick? So but then even in that, I'd be like, well, that's not my fault. Well, I went into that. It's my fault. And that's where I went deep, deep, deep.
mm,
And so it's hard. And don't worry, we talk to this day. We got a kid and grandkids, and we do laugh and giggle. So life can be different when
yeah,
are in other world. So we laugh and talk about certain things, and it's kind of like we're laughing, going, "Wow, we're laughing together. It was good."
yeah,
So, but when we're going through that, that really did hurt. That was hard because I'm like, well, maybe if she would have said something,
mhm,
bluntly to me, then maybe things would have changed. And so because there were some things that I did wrong. I'm not arguing that.
Yep.
but I didn't know that.
Yep.
And so I'm just saying at that point, at certain points, just be vulnerable and talk it up. Don't hide things because then if you're doing something and you don't know it, how can you fix it
Yep.
or change it? And I know for a fact that Jacqueline doesn't purposely hurt Sheldon. I know that
Right.
for a fact. But sometimes we say things, all of us, that come out. We didn't mean it that way. This is what I meant. Or, it just the other person needs to feel like, hey, you're saying this that hurt me, not realizing that you were saying something that was so deep. Because it may not be that factor right there, but 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, Sheldon had this happen, and that triggered this.
Yeah.
Jacqueline didn't know what happened 40 years ago.
Right.
She doesn't know that. And so it's like, well, oh, she says, oh, I didn't know it that way. I didn't mean it that way. I meant this way. So, okay, so now you know she may say it again in a different way,
Yeah.
but not to be mean, just to say, hey, here's what you need to work on. Oh, okay. It's not that I'm a dumb person, a bad person, a mean person. It's just like, hey, this is one thing that can help. Oh, I need help. Cool. Thank you.
Right.
So, yeah. So it's all be open, be honest, and be ready to be vulnerable. So,
And that'll get you to that place so that everything you do carries the energy of where you do it from. So
yeah.
again, it's always a process of turning in and being compassionate towards what you're finding in your own heart,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
you know, and allowing yourself, because sometimes it's being vulnerable to ourselves is even hard, right? Because it's like admitting that you're hurt, or admitting that you have stuff, or admitting that, oh, when my dad beat me when I was little, that messed me up, or whatever. A lot of times we're just like, no, I'm fine. That's over. I'm over that. Right. And we're not even vulnerable to ourselves. We're not even willing to admit to ourselves that, we have traumas, or we have difficult things that happen, or we have wounds and scars and things like that that we might need to look at and process, right?
Yeah.
So the vulnerability, everything always comes back to you and yourself. But ultimately, that'll allow you to be happier. So this whole thing is always about being happy, and how do we
Hmm.
find happiness so that we can share that with the rest of the world, because that is healing and that is uplifting for everybody, right? Is everything you do carries the energy that you do it from. And
Yeah.
if we can heal that within ourselves with our own love, and love heals all things,
Hmm.
and perfect love casts out all fear. It's literally in the
Yeah.
Bible, right? Like, it's love can heal all things, but that's the unconditional love, not
Hmm.
judgmental love, but
Yeah.
unconditional love.
And on that, I'm thinking about telling a quick little story about Brenly that we're talking about before we with the
Sure,
fire.
sure,
Um, and I'm not going to go into big details because I don't want to call the church out. I don't want to call any person out. But I'll just use her first name, Brinley. So a friend of mine's daughter is a pastor in California, and the and Christmas Eve service, it was the head pastor was gone. He left to another church, and so they were in search for a new pastor. And before the new pastor came on, they were trying to figure out who to preach. And so Brentley had been wanting to preach, and the elders or the board or the other pastors, I'm not sure what the group is, um, weren't too supportive. And there were several that were very not supportive of her doing that. And so it's kind of like, hey, let her do it. Let's see her fail. Let's see how she does, which is kind of sad within a church that it happens that way. But maybe it's a growing thing that'll happen. Um, she did this a Christmas Eve service, and it was awesome. I watched it. I'm like, wow, all my years in, going to the church. I was born and raised in church. Granddad was a preacher. What she spoke on, which was Christmas, but it was from the Old Testament. I'm like, wow, I never knew that. And I was like, wow, I learned so much from this kid, and so um, the new pastor was there, and it gave her so much support when he came in. He goes, I don't know who you are, I don't know who this is, but you got my support. Blah blah blah. Well, fast forward, so the fires are happening, and that's where their church is, and uh, the new head pastor and her were at the church, and they ran up to the two houses that the church had for several pastors, and they were getting stuff out of the new lead pastor's house, like birth certificates, shots, whatever information on personal stuff you could get right then and there. And at that point, she goes, she thought about the neighbor who was another pastor, and realized I need to get that stuff out for them. Well, it's the house of the pastor that really did not support her. So at that point, just said, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm running from this fire. The fire was coming at them. I
Like,
mean,
literally.
literally at their feet. Um, and she called and went into the house, and they told her where to get all of the valuables that they needed, put it in a backpack, and her and the lead pastor were running down the street, and someone picked them up in a car. So at that's where she came. I mean, from love.
Yeah.
That's that always of that's all shows you who she is. And it's that, yeah, I'm sure there was some anger in there, but that had passed because of all the what she does in her life, where she comes from, is love, saying, "Hey, that's a human being, may have not agreed with me and wanted something different, but she never even thought that in the moment of death, because the fire's coming." And by the way, both those houses are gone; they're burnt.
Wow.
There's nothing left. They're on the ground. Um, and maybe that will make a change for him. Maybe he'll see that, hey, this is her
Yeah.
coming from love,
Beautiful.
and
Like,
I didn't realize. And so it's like, even though it's within the church, you're going like, well, that doesn't happen in the church. Well, yeah, it does.
yeah.
So maybe that is one thing that may happen out of love. She did it out
Mm,
of love, not out of, hey, he's
yeah.
another pastor. I need to go do this or do this. It's like, no, she did it out of love. And so
Yeah.
hopefully he can see that, and that can make a small spark and change. And so, which we all
Absolutely.
can do in our life.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So, yeah, and all those, and I will tell you right now, because I know we're getting ready to wrap this up. On all those in California, in the LA area, having fires, we're praying for you. We're hoping that wherever you are, you can find some peace and find some help and find some um, hope. Because I tell you
Yes.
what, there's people out there that are willing to help, and we know that you're there, and so don't ever think you're ever forgotten. But it's going to take time to rebuild, and that's
Yes.
sometimes what we can do as a community, as families. And if
And
there's any ways you can reach out, I know I've already got some ways that I can't go there and help, but I got some
I
stuff that
but
I
I
can
think
help them with. So,
for those who, the Arizonans and people who are
mhm,
might be listening to this in other parts of the country or world or whatever, don't ever underestimate the power of prayer. That's what I would
mhm.
say,
Yep,
you know?
I totally
That
agree.
is that is, again, I'm an energy guy. That is an energy. That is an energy of love, and
Hmm.
that, can work miracles. So,
Yes, yep.
don't
It's the power, it's
underestimate
the
it.
energy, it's the I mean, God hears all prayers, as we'd say,
Mhm.
and your energy goes out. I
Yep,
mean, you don't say, you may think my energy goes here across the street. No, it goes worldwide.
yep,
That's why we pray about people
yep.
that are around the world, because that energy pushes out.
Absolutely
So,
matters.
yeah,
Absolutely
thoughts,
matters.
thoughts and prayers
Mhm.
around the world for them. So,
So we give you our love and our prayers if you're
yep.
watching this, and, um, I think that's a wrap, right?
Yeah.
Well,
And so, everybody else out there, I hope you're having a great week. Hope you have that smile on, and hope you have another great week coming up. And welcome to the new year. Hope your new year's going great, because we're in it. So,
and thanks for watching this episode of Next Level Real Talk podcast. We would love your support by liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends, and posting comments uh, below. It really does help us.
and if you're new to our podcast, we hope you go back and listen to a couple of our previous episodes. And again, thanks for listening to Next Level Real Talk.